When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers.
Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require port and number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gurus Radio, where we learn practical, real-world, street smarts knowledge that you wish they would have taught in college, and in some cases, what they don't cover in the media. And today is definitely one of those examples. There's a couple different taboo topics that the traditional media is just not going to touch. But we're going to cover that today. Important information, especially for single men in America, that you definitely need to know. And if you've gone through a breakup, divorce, that sort of thing, this is going to be even more valuable. We're going to be joined here in just a moment by Winston Wu, who happens to be the owner of happierabroad.com, and we're going to discuss some of the eye-opening reasons for looking at other options for the single man here in America. Winston, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Before I go into your website, which certainly is a tell it like it is, refreshing dose of reality and truth in the single scene in America, I want to just briefly, I'm going to go into an example of what I discovered just recently that validates in my mind how real what you promote truly is. But let me just start this conversation out, Winston, with the way I see online dating. And I tried it, did some research, and wasted a lot of time. And I know I'm not alone. What happens with online dating is, first of all, they're pretty much all the same. They don't have the precautions, I guess you can say, to avoid the following scenario. And that is that many guys think that online dating is a vehicle to become a player. So they bombard the average or better-looking gal here in America, and the average gal gets hundreds of emails, correspondence every week. And all of a sudden what happens is that, the average gal gets very, picky. It kind of gets to her head, and you can see it in what they start to look for. They become way pickier than they otherwise would be, and then they're starting to respond. It's all based on looks now, and they're responding to probably the top 7% of best-looking guys. And then they get surprised a couple months down the road that they're dating a player. And the other 93% of guys are, losing their confidence, wondering why they're not desirable, and everyone ends up wasting a significant amount of their time. Now, with your solution, Happier Abroad, Winston, can you tell us a little bit about, what happens to the guys that first, read your website, give it a try, and how happy they are?
Yeah, well, it depends on where they're coming from. I mean, if they've already been overseas, then they know the differences. But some of them just don't know how to put it into words, or they don't think it through that clearly. But for the mainstream guy that's never left America, it seems kind of hard to believe because when you're used to such a rough, unnatural, and dysfunctional dating scene, it's hard to imagine that it'd be different anywhere outside your country, or your borders, because everyone assumes that the rest of the world is like where they're at. I mean, it's just a subconscious assumption. I mean, just like when I lived in California, I assumed, everywhere had the same weather as California, and that wasn't true. So it's just an assumption. But once guys go overseas, I mean, they do notice a huge difference. I mean, it's not just that the women are more thin or feminine. They're just more down to earth and natural, and it's a difference that you really have to experience to really know. And but you know, I don't want to generalize and say that all foreign women are good or angels or anything like that. There are pros and cons to every culture. But one thing that is really consistent is that even if you go to another Western country like Australia or Western Europe, where women are also Westernized, there's still going to be a difference in that there's still going to be a lot more down to earth and things. I mean, the conversation just flows a lot more naturally, and you don't feel as demonized for flirting or complimenting a girl or telling her that she's beautiful, or, you know, or expressing your feelings. Because in most of the world, all that is natural and just very acceptable, and and there's not this suppression that you feel in America, which you're not even supposed to talk about, and that's a huge thing. That's why we call it at Happier Abroad the biggest dating secret for men, because once men find this, it's like gold, and it changes their lives, and they never want to go back to the U.S. dating scene again.
Well, I can completely relate to that, because I put that to the test recently. I joined a couple overseas dating sites. Night and day difference. Oh, my goodness. The tables are certainly turned. And, you know, what I discovered is, you know, there's one gal that I've been corresponding with for the last couple of months, and she appreciates so little. And she happens to be in the Philippines. And, you know, one of the things that she had never experienced a compliment from a guy before. She had only been with one guy, believe it or not, and it was a long-term relationship. He didn't treat her good, and he cheated on her. And I'm hearing the same story over and over and over. And women here want to quickly dismiss that if you're looking overseas, oh, the girls must just be after your money or citizenship. That, and I've proved it, is not the case. In many cases, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, Winston, you're the expert at this, but it seems like 1/3 of the case, maybe they're looking for money or U.S. citizenship. Certainly when 1/3, the women just want somebody to treat them better. And the guys, you know, are much more selfish because they can be players overseas, is what I'm hearing. By, you know, I ask, you know, how's your search going? Not good, you know, and then how long has it been since you've been loved? Oh, 3 years. How come? Oh, you know, he cheated on me. And, you know, you hear that guys overseas truly are, from what I've gathered, players. And maybe you can comment on that, but...
Well, all those things you say are true. I mean, there are, in regards to the Philippines or Latin America, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of guys that are going to be players because they can be. Because in those countries, I mean, the dating scene is reversed. The men have a lot more choices than the women do. And one reason, of course, is because when a country is less economically developed, the women are going to improve themselves, look better, be more feminine and sweet, and develop better personalities. And plus, there seems to be a surplus of single women, which makes them outnumber the single men, because a lot of men in lesser developed countries go overseas to try to make money, and so they leave there's a lot of male workers that emigrate out of those countries, which leaves a surplus of single females that are just very sweet and tender and pleasing and just a refreshing world of difference to be with. And this is literally true. I mean, this is no advertisement or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're a decent guy there and you're personable and you're nice and you treat women well, I mean, you're going to be pretty popular. There's going to be a lot of girls there that'll be competing for you, and then you'll feel like you have so many choices that I mean, a lot of guys do become players when they have too many choices. That's just, you know, I guess part of male nature, you know. And some guys are more monogamous. They settle down right away, but some guys aren't. But either way, the bottom line is you get a lot more choices overseas in such countries, and the choices are a lot better quality. I mean, the women are down to earth. They're sweet. They look healthier. They're I mean, there's nowhere near the obesity rate that there is in the U.S. And talking to them just feels smooth. I mean, they look up to you as a man. You can flirt with them and compliment them, and they're just easy to get along with. And sure, some of them might be a little bit more dramatic and stuff, but I mean that's how female nature is. Females can give you a hard time too, but you definitely feel like you're in the game, and that really means a lot to a guy's ego, especially if it's been bruised in the U.S. where you're constantly told that you're a creep, and the culture makes you feel inadequate because it's just so competitive, and there's just no connection with other people that you just feel alone and insecure, and that also makes you shy, and it just perpetuates itself. And so it's not just about dating that improves overseas, but it's your mental health, the way you feel about yourself, and the connectedness you feel with other people. I mean, when you go overseas, it's easy to start a conversation. Even in westernized Europe, it is. I mean, because the people are more down to earth and more genuine. You don't realize how plastic America is, especially along the coastlines like California and New York. You don't realize how plastic it really is and how fake it is until you go overseas. You see, I'm not saying that other countries are a perfect paradise, but the main thing to keep in mind is even though there are good and bad people in all countries, the main thing is that the good and the bad in other countries is very natural and genuine. I mean, it's the way humans have been for thousands of years. But when you see how America is, people just have a plastic quality and artificial quality that is really unprecedented in history. And I don't know how it became that way. There's probably many different reasons. But the difference is definitely there. There's a genuineness. Even if you go to Australia or France or Spain, I mean, people are, which are not poor countries, of course. People are just so much more sincere, aware of the rest of the world, and you don't have to feel shy because you just feel like you can talk to people and they talk back to you, and there's not that awkwardness or that barrier that you feel in the U.S. So it's not just dating; it's the social connection and how you feel about yourself that improves, and those are three really big areas. And unfortunately, this never gets talked about in the media because in the media, all they talk about are jobs and the economy, and they never talk about this kind of stuff because I guess they're motivated by economic interests in the corporate sector, so that's their primary concern, and if it's not that, then they're giving you an image of a terrible world where everything is in conflict and there's danger around every corner, and they're focused on tragedies or just really irrelevant stuff like gays in the military, which straight people don't care about. So they're just feeding you irrelevant, useless stuff in the media, and so none of this important, life-changing information gets out unless you're reading the internet a lot. But the thing is, if you go to a lot of expatriate sites, they don't talk about this because those sites cater to people living abroad for travel or for culture or for work or for American couples abroad. And there are a few international dating sites besides mine that talk about this, but there's just so few in number that there are probably millions of lonely, frustrated guys suffering in America, who are at a dead end. They know they can't get dates, and they don't even try anymore because it's just a no-win situation for them. And they really need to hear this, but when they do, sometimes it's just too unbelievable for them or too far out of the box.
Yes. Well, what you said about the media, it's amazing because America is no longer the best country. There was a report that came out to the top 5 countries in the world. Australia was one of them, and it mentioned that the Australians trust their government. That's number one. Number 2 is they don't spend trillions on bogus wars for the war profiteers, killing many people, and then putting it on the $15 trillion tab, the national debt. And then they have health care where they don't, shift the burden to small businesses that can't afford the never-ending health care rate increases and then can't afford to hire. But let me just say real quick about shattering one's confidence. I went through a divorce 2 years ago after 14 years, and to see somebody you care about so much turn on you, demonize you, rewrite history to justify actions, my confidence was shot there. 2009 was my worst year ever. And but after discovering overseas dating, I also got in shape. Okay, I got my act together. I'm looking better than ever. But even so, I'm not in the top 7% of best-looking guys in online dating here. I go overseas. Like I said earlier, the tables are turned. It's amazing how many proactively email me, "You're so handsome." I'm 42, and I'm corresponding with two of my regulars. One is, 29, the other's 24. And both of them are, so worried that I'm going to find somebody else. They're so grateful that they met me. It is just unbelievable. One has a great job as a court reporter, the 29-year-old in the Philippines. And, she makes great money relative to everybody else. And, she wants me to visit her badly, and I'm going to probably in the fall. And I said, "How long do you want me to stay with you?" And she's like, "Forever." And she truly means it. And not only that, but my dad, at age 62, discovered this a couple years back in Thailand. He now, he lived in L.A. for 10 years, can't stand the rat race, can't stand people flipping you off, not friendly, etc. And then he goes over to the land of smiles, and he's got, I don't know how many girlfriends, many of which in their 20s, making him feel very young. And but it's everybody's happy there. They don't have to impress their neighbors. They don't have to buy new furniture every 2 years, buy a depreciating expensive car to impress people. It's just a whole other world. And I'm a big believer now based on my recent experience, Winston. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the experience you've talked about. I mean, where you fall in love with someone in America, and then or you have a relationship, and it becomes traumatizing, and then you become disillusioned. Then you wait another few years and get another woman, and then it comes with more trouble, and you can never find a good woman that treats you right, and that. Where it just goes smoothly. I mean, there's always some dysfunctional problem, and the worst thing about it is you're not allowed to blame when you're in a dysfunctional dating scene like this in America. You're not allowed to blame the society or to blame other people or to blame the dating scene or the culture. The culture expects you to only blame yourself. Either that or you pretend that everything's great and just deny that there's a problem. And so this is a taboo where you're not allowed to talk about it, and people are either and that's just denial, to blame yourself or to pretend everything's great, because if you do either one of those, things aren't going to change. You're not going to improve your dating life by blaming yourself. I mean, that doesn't do anything. It's just a emotional denial of people that don't want to hear about those, or that are living in fear of truth. But yeah, I've as far as the Philippines, I've been living there for about 3 years now, and for dating, it's definitely a paradise. I mean, there are so many single women, a surplus of them, and there are so many different types that you just have so many choices. I mean, I can go to the grocery store, and more often than not, I can tell, a girl at the checkout that she's pretty, and then I can ask for her phone number, and then she'll just write it on my receipt, and then that's fine, and then I can, follow up with her later. And whereas if I did that in the U.S., I'd feel like a creep, So here I definitely feel like I have a lot more freedom, because I can just, be who I am. If I like to flirt, I can do that, and it's not villainized here. So almost every guy I know here says they experience a lot more freedom than they do in the U.S. And speaking of the U.S., I mean, when you were comparing to Australia earlier about how Australia doesn't start wars and stuff, I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, even though they're both Western countries, the level of mind control in the U.S. is so severe. I mean, you're told that you're living in a free country, yet all the evidence shows that it's against it. At least in the last 10 years or so. I mean, everything has become so regulated. But even if you look at it from a broad perspective, I mean, everything is just so controlled and regulated in the U.S. that there just doesn't feel like there's freedom at all. And there's too many consequences for every little thing, and life is just so stressful, and people, there's so many miserable faces around the U.S. that it just doesn't look like the land of the free at all, but you're told that. So, I mean, the level of mind control seems so strong. And what I've noticed is that a lot of guys that come to my forum, for example, from Australia or the UK, they might also be complaining about the dating scene in their country. And they think that their women are just like American women. But when I talk to Australians and British men that have been both that have tried dating in the U.S. and their country, they'll always say that their country is nowhere as bad as it is in the U.S. They always say that if they've dated in the U.S. and in Australia and in the U.K., they'll say, well, it's not as bad as in the U.S., but it's still getting worse, So so there's many different countries, but I mean, things just flow a lot more naturally there. I mean, whether you're in the UK or in France or in the Philippines or in Latin America or in Russia, where I spend a lot of my time. Every country has a different culture, of course, but the male-female relationships are just so much more natural, and the women just act much more feminine. They're not afraid to wear skirts and heels and to giggle and blush. I mean, if you notice, hardly any girls in the U.S. blush anymore or giggle. Many years ago, there might have been some, but not anymore. I mean, they're just too. They've just been conditioned to believe they don't need men. Huh?
Yeah, it's hard to find sweet girls. I mean, that's absolutely a must. If I'm going to commit to somebody in a relationship, she has to be sweet. Otherwise, I'm not interested. And I mean, I'm serious, because that's feminine. I mean, being sweet, and goofy, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean,
it's natural.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, when they go overseas and see how women are, I mean, the first thing they think is wow, this is how God meant women to be. And then the next thing they think is, why didn't I come here sooner? And then they kick themselves for not, going abroad sooner. I mean, so if you're like in your 20s or 30s, I mean, it's better to go abroad soon so you don't waste your time in a losing game. Because if you wait till you're 40 or 50 or 60, you'll kick yourself for not going 10 years earlier. I mean, the more time you waste at the office. I mean, the more time you spend at the office. Yeah, exactly. Your dad would say that because
he did. He said he wished he did it 15 years earlier.
Because you're kind of scammed in the U.S. to think that you can't really have fun and free time until you retire, and that's not true. I mean, there are many ways of making a living overseas and retiring early. I mean, if you just have a few $1,000s, you can come to a cheap country like the Philippines, for instance, and then you can find a place and rent it for like $100 a month, and then, there's a lot of work you can do online, freelancing and teaching English, and when you know a lot of expats here, they give you work. I mean, I get work, editing English scripts in English for Asian companies here that my expat friends refer me to, for example. So the more you network, I mean, the more opportunities you have, and I always go by this slogan, where there's a will, there's a way. And that's really true. So you don't have to buy into this, that you have to retire and become a millionaire in the U.S. before you go overseas. I mean, it's better to do it young because you want to, enjoy your life when you're young. And so you have even better pickings when you're young, too.
The girl that wants me to visit, simple lifestyle. She lives 10 minutes walking distance from the beach. She's like, oh, you like seafood, Steve? Oh, it's, large jumbo shrimp, tiger prawns are very inexpensive, as is crab. We'll eat shrimp and crab all day long. Of course, make love all day long. I mean, worry-free. I mean, if people realize how many people are picking your pockets in America, the oil companies, $4 gas on its way higher again, like 2008, the HMOs, never-ending rate increases, unjustified. They're picking your pockets. Wall Street's picking your pockets. Your bank's not on your side. I mean, and then you got the police state looking, the police officers looking to give you traffic tickets now. Big crime fighters there. That's no longer seems to be their priority. I mean, if you add up the cost of food, all the taxes that you pay, the close to 10% sales tax, you add it all up. Nobody does that. That's the thing. Nobody wants to add it all up. But if they do and compare it to the $100 a month rent that you talked about, and the cheap seafood, and the not the never-ending insurance that you're required to get, the depreciating automobiles you don't need. I mean, what a great life! And then having unlimited supply of young, sweet, and petite women that appreciate so little, including a compliment. A no-brainer. Winston, no-brainer.
Definitely, and if you go to Thailand or the Philippines, I mean, you can be just like a Hugh Hefner. I mean, you don't have to own a Playboy empire or be a multi-millionaire to be like a Hugh Hefner. I mean, you can just have a normal salary and be like that. I mean, it's all about location.
Yes.
I mean, dating, and we say at Happier Abroad, dating is like real estate. It's all about location, and so you can have you can find a nice virgin, for a monogamous relationship, or you can be a playboy. It's up to you. I mean, the man has the choices as long as you know where to go and expand your dating pool to globally, internationally, beyond your local borders, and besides dating, social life, and mental health, I mean, there's also, food and healthcare. I've noticed that, for example, if you go to Europe, I mean, the food is a lot more organic there, where, and more natural and healthy, whereas in the U.S., there's all these chemicals and processed flour and MSGs, and you have to go to expensive organic food stores in the U.S. to get healthy food. Whereas in Europe, I mean, the mainstream food is already pretty natural and organic. So I mean, food is healthier, and also, I mean, the healthcare thing in the U.S. is just horrible. I mean, it can bankrupt anybody instantly if you don't have health insurance. But in most countries, I mean, healthcare is a very small fraction of what it is in the U.S. I mean, you can get health care. I mean, even if you're paying out of your own pocket, it's still much less than in the U.S. So, I mean, healthcare shouldn't be that expensive. But in other countries, it's definitely much more affordable for the average person to go to the doctor. No, definitely. So there's many different areas of life that are improved overseas. I mean. But of course, there's pros and cons, and it depends on the individual and what they like. But if you, want to have better quality choices in women, I mean, overseas is definitely the best way to go, 100%. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean,
I've made up my mind. I'm going to be. It's just a matter of when. Is it 3 years from now? Is it 5 years from now? At the age of 42, one thing I know is that the day I turn 50, I won't be here. Will it be the Ukraine? Will it likely be, Philippines or Thailand? Not sure yet. But in the meantime, I do plan to, take nice extended vacations over the next few years to those countries. And,
come on over here. I'd love to show you around, to the Philippines if you want.
That would be great, Winston. Now, real quick, we only have a couple minutes left. The gal that I'm going to be seeing lives in a very safe area of the Philippines, far away from Manila. Real quick, is Manila safe or not, or does it not matter because there's other places?
Well, depends on what you mean by safe. I mean, yeah, in that big city, there is a lot of corruption and crime, but if you just use common sense and watch out and I mean, there might be holes in the sidewalk sometimes, or fast-moving cars, But if you just use some common sense, I mean, most guys that I know that have gone there have never had anything bad happen to them. And you might get ripped off sometimes. Sometimes if you go to a poor country, there will be a lot of people ripping you off. But if you get used to that and know how to play the game and know where to go, then you can avoid those things.
I'm not hearing that in Thailand.
There's going to be negative sides and like that. But if you go outside Manila to the provinces, the people are much more wholesome with better values and much more innocent. Because Manila and Antioch City tends to draw the
Hey, Winston, sorry to cut you off. We only have a few seconds. I just want to let everybody know that we're going to have you back on very soon. Okay, we're going to have you back on. We have a lot more that we can cover that I think people are going to want to hear. So, Winston, thanks for joining us. HappierAbroad.com, and we'll have you on soon.
Great. Thanks for having me, Steve. I look forward to coming on again.
Okay, great. Have a good day, man.
You too.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.